Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. It's been an incredible day. I know it's been a long day for many of you, but so worth it. We've learned together. We appreciate everybody who's participated on our panels. Thanks to our moderators, and again, thanks to all of you for being here. I'm excited that we get to end the day with two of my favorite people. I'm lucky to serve as the governor of Utah in a region filled with great governors, and these are two of the very best anywhere in the country. It's when you become a governor, you enter this kind of fraternity. There's only 50 of us out there, and those that have been in, even if they've only been in for a couple years longer than you look up to them in important ways. Both of these gentlemen have been mentors to me. They've helped me solve problems. They've been inspirational. We work very closely together. We're lucky. The Western Governors Association, of which they have both been significant participants and chaired, is unique in the country to have a regional governors association that works so well. We work well in a bipartisan manner, but it's even more fun when we're on the same team. And so it's great to be with a couple of my teammates here today and to talk about the wonderful things that are happening in their state. We're really proud of Utah. You heard some of that today, the great things we're doing. But the truth is we're stealing ideas from both of these guys, and hopefully there's some ideas that Utah has initiated that have helped them out as well. So, gentlemen, thank you for joining us. It's great of you to come to our state. I want to just start with a big picture question. When you look at the energy landscape in your states today, what do you see? What's working? What's changing? Governor Little, why don't you go ahead and start us off?
Well, thank you, Spencer. We're by almost any measure the fastest or one or two growing states, so we've got that, and then we've got some pretty significant energy use that's coming into the state, and on top of the pending AI data revolution. And if you look at the energy, and I'm at an energy conference, so I don't have to tell anybody here, for years and years and years of flat energy demand, now we've got a 20 to, and it's all about over what time frame, a 20 to 30% increase, and where are we going to have the energy? We were traditionally 60% hydro. We had the cheapest power, and that's where a lot of the growth came in Idaho. Originally was because of that very, very affordable power. Now we're down in the 50% base load, and then we get energy from, we've got some peaking plants, we've got some combined cycle plants. We do get energy from our good friends in Wyoming, but we're looking into the future about what's going to take place. But one of the biggest assets we have in Idaho is the National Lab. And they're the lead nuclear lab in the United States, but they also are in all the other areas, and we talk about transmission, we talk about all those other things, but we just, I think it just got finalized in the last couple days, basically put in a waiver to allow some material come in to do more research, which will literally extend the life of the whole fleet of 50 power plants all over the United States. So that's what's going on. We're like everybody else. The commonality between particularly our three states, we're going to need more energy. We're going to need more transmission. How do we best do it? And we know that we're going to have to work together with our, with the federal government, with the local communities, with the utilities to get to that point.
Governor Gordon.
Yeah, well, thank you, Spencer, and it's been great to be here and hear some of the wonderful ideas. It's been nice to hear a little bit of this is going on in Wyoming, but as everyone here can attest, this region is a powerhouse. So just some statistics on Wyoming. We export about 12 times the amount of energy that we use. We're number one in uranium, number one in coal, number 8 in natural gas, number 9 in oil. We're number 10, moving up quickly in wind. And so we've really tried to look in Wyoming at how can we make the best use of all of this. And it's been great to have two colleagues here. And I just came back from Japan I was there last week. Governor Lujan Grisham of New Mexico was there. And what we kept talking about is how this world is going to need more and more energy. We can produce it here in this country cheaper. We can produce it with better regulation. And we can produce pretty much anything you want. And so how can we get after that and make a big difference in that? Spencer, I think one of the things that's really been interesting to me in the panels that we heard was that workforce issue. And we saw early on that, I mean, coal obviously was, I know Utah has the same issue where people thought coal was really the worst thing that we could possibly do. A couple of us in the West said, you know, if you really want to do something with climate change, carbon capture, sequestration is really the best way you can do it. Because even if we turned off every fossil fuel element in the country at this point, we still wouldn't resolve those issues as aggressively as we could if we looked at carbon capture. Now, all of this is expensive. All of this is leading the way. But all of it means that we have to have intellectual capital, not only workforce, but also research. And that's what this region can do better than almost anyone else. So it's so exciting here to talk about nuclear, where I think we were just talking a little bit ago, a decade ago, everybody was like, that'll never have a future. And now we have not only advanced nuclear on the table, we've been thrilled with TerraPower, as you heard a little bit earlier. We've got small modular nuclear that's being considered. We've got micronuclear that's being considered. That just so many new technologies, new ways to fuel them. A lot of that has come out of Idaho National Nuclear Laboratory. So to me, I'm really thrilled. It's nice to have the demand picture. We know that the supply picture is there. Now the connections between the two is something I think all of us regionally are going to have to work on.
Yeah, so Mark, you brought this up. We share a geography. We share, you know, similar kind of political leanings between the states. We share the grid and a utility. Let's talk a little bit more about that regional approach. We're going to be signing an MOU here in about 30 minutes together, 25 minutes, that I think is unique and maybe the first of its kind in the nation. How do you look at that, and keep going, Mark, and then we'll go to you, Brad. How do you look at those geographic similarities, and why is it important? I mean, obviously we can do this, you can do this, Brad could do this. Why should we be doing this together?
Well, I think a part of it is that we are all pretty much interconnected. If you look at some of the investors in Wyoming power plants, it's Idaho, it's, you know, Pacific Core, it's Rocky Mountain, and others. So I think there's a lot of connectedness there. And I think that we share I think the fact that we do share a geography, and that geography has so much supply in it, that our ability to get that to market is really benefited by us cooperating, and I think we can make a huge difference. From a policy standpoint, I think the fact that we're all aligned, that people in this region of the country care about the environment, care about the future, care about kids, care about wildlife, all that sort of stuff, it means that we can demonstrate solutions when other people are much more interested in trying to figure out how to regulate whatever we do. I mean, we've often talked about the future is going to be better served with innovation than it is by regulation. You've got great universities. We've all got great universities. The collaboration is where we're going to see the greatest success.
Thanks, Governor Little.
Well, of course, one of the things that's changed in the last 100 days is the new administration, and Secretary Wright and Secretary Burgum, I was with them at an energy conference last week, and they are both very dedicated. And so one of the things that we can do collectively is representing a big piece of real estate and a very critical part of this country is say, here's what we think ought to be the top of the priority list and the things to get done. You know, 4 years is not a very long time to get major changes. One of the words in this document we're about to sign talks about the word durable. You can make temporary changes in policy, but we want durable because the capital markets, particularly if you're going to get into investments in nuclear, they need to have surety about the internal rate of return on their investment. So we need to collectively and with the entirety of the Western governors say here's our priority list of the changes that need to be made. Believe me, those two secretaries are very keen on doing that. There's a lot of stuff going on. We were sharing our stories about our frustration about how slow the appointment process is going back there right now. But I think that's one of the key things is, Secretary Burgum in particular was one of our predecessors as chairman of the Western Governors and knows full well what the issues are in our states. So we've got a sympathetic ear there to get things done. And Secretary Wright is, I cannot be more impressed with his grasp of the big challenges in the energy industry, and he's the right man for that job.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up. I was gonna ask a question on that in a minute, but we might as well talk about it now. There has been significant changes over the past 100 days. Governor Burgum, of course, a colleague of ours, former governor of North Dakota. Chris Wright from this, this region, lives in Colorado, has done tremendous work there. When we look at what has to happen in nuclear, and Governor Gordon, I'd love to get your impressions. We just heard Governor Little's impressions on Secretary Wright and Secretary Burgum. I think we're big fans. Secretary Zeldin as well. I would add him to the mix. I think with the creation of the new energy council. I know it's got some fantastic name. I can't remember what it is. That we're going to demolish the rest of the world energy commission or whatever it is. I'm not sure. Something like that. But it's really cool what they're doing back there. But Governor Gordon, look, so you're of the three states, you're actually trying to build right now. We've heard from TerraPower CEO Chris Levesque, but I'm interested in what your interactions with Governor Burgum and Secretary Burgum and Secretary Wright, and specifically towards nuclear. What do we need to do? What do we need to change to get this stuff built?
Well, couple things on that. One is obviously Chris Wright is very encouraged by it. He is familiar with nuclear power, sees the great growth, the potential there. It's so much fun to hear about how the NRC has reformed in 10 years. A decade ago, I was going to try to push new uranium mining permits through the NRC, and it was just really like pulling teeth. So to see that kind of get momentum now is really encouraging. I think people are looking with kind of bated breath to see TerraPower, whether it'll come to fruition or not, even in that interval. So oddly enough, in Wyoming, people didn't like Bill Gates. I don't know if they have that issue here. So how can you let that guy invest in our state? And our point was, it's his money. He gets to do what he wants to. And we're working to make sure our regulatory structure, you heard a little bit about it beforehand, is responsive and can help facilitate a rapid construction interval on this. And now, people are saying, well, wait a minute, this could really be part of the future. That's now expanded into a couple of others. We're looking at the possibility of building TRISO fuel in one of our towns. We're looking at the possibility of getting construction, which has always been my deal. How can we, if we're going to do small modular units, how do we get the manufacturing in place so that we can build them here, build them right here, and be able to export them? Then there are models that are showing up like maybe we can build it and we can lease it to places, and the use cases are just astronomical, from remote villages in Alaska to behind the meter at data centers, et cetera, et cetera. So all of this has evolved, and all of that's exciting. But to the point you made about the change of administration, when Luan Grishin and I were just in Japan, the point the Japanese were making to us from the Prime Minister on down is that with the tariff discussion, with the change of that whole conversation, we now, as Japan, are very interested in putting capital into the United States. Not only do we want to buy your energy, which helps to balance our trade deficit somewhat, But we also feel that we have great capacity now to help invest in the future in Wyoming, in Utah, in Idaho, in New Mexico. And I think that there's great opportunities to kind of accelerate and ramp up on that, Spencer.
Okay, thank you. So, Governor Little, and this question to you as well, Governor Gordon. You look at where nuclear's been built in the past, mostly in the South, East Coast, highly populated areas. We're out here in much more rural, although urbanized in sections. As you look out this window, you see some of that urbanization that's happening. But a lot of rural areas still. And historically, the energy industry has been really important for our rural areas. I'm always concerned about the economies of rural Utah. All three of us, farmers, ranchers, this is in our background. Can you talk just a little bit about why this matters to rural parts of your state, Governor Little?
Well, of course, we have a transmission as the West continues to grow and some of these huge power consumers come in, we're going to have more transmission, or we can put the production of energy closer to the source where we don't tax our transmission system. Somebody is going to build a scalable, replicatable, safe nuclear plant. Somebody, and I hope it's somebody in the United States.
Wyoming would be doing that right now.
And you can do it. But it could be in China. And right now with this administration, with these two secretaries, we need absolutely to get started. We don't, we can get the permitting done. We need some fuel, obviously, but we have got to get started. It's going to happen somewhere, but it solves the energy problem, and it also solves part of the transmission problem, because to your point about, you get some of these areas where, the length of time and the transmission, you build the transmission right next to where the heavy use is, or build the production right next to where the heavy use is, and you don't have to consume your transmission. It's going to happen. We just need to get going, and I think the wisdom of this agreement we're about to sign is we're all in. If you build it in Wyoming, build it in Utah, I'm all in. Because I know a lot of the research will be done in Idaho. So, but it's important, because if you have a transmission problem, we have a transmission problem, the way we're tied together. And so we just absolutely need more production. And you got to build the first one, figure out how to do it to scale. They'll noodle with it a little bit, but the 10th one is going to be vastly cheaper, and that's what the Department of Energy does. Their biggest job is to give those grants, seed money to get started, and we're going to work real hard on that.
I like that, Governor Gordon.
Yeah, no, Spencer, specifically, I think that the jobs are incredibly important. They hold communities together. This has been one of my biggest issues with that whole-scale sort of effort to try to get rid of coal mining, is you were taking the heart out of these communities, not just the production of the hydrocarbon, but also the stores, the cafes, everything else that was associated with it. So being able to have that kind of production in the state, in these rural areas, kind of keeps those communities whole, keeps them with a future. And what I really, as we talk about it, I think we've talked a lot about generating and other things to do with nuclear power, but we haven't really talked about fuel cycles. So when TerraPower came into play, we had to depend on fuel from Kazakhstan. Over time, it took, I remember famously talking to Larry Kudlow and saying, we've got to do something about domestic uranium production. The concern at that time was that's going to raise costs for consumers in the Southeast. We can't do it. We've now understood that Russia isn't our friend, and maybe we should have domestic, since we have tremendous reserves. But now we need to have conversion. We lost that in the last couple decades. We need to have enrichment. We need to have fabrication. We just need all the other parts of that. So I think that also can help to sort of revitalize a lot of our rural economy and put that workforce that we're all training, we're so working on, to give them really exciting new jobs and ways to think about the future.
So Governor Little brought up the transmission piece. Let's keep going on that thread. Governor Little, you mentioned taxing transmission, how difficult it is for transmission right now. I'd like to do two things here. I'd like to talk about transmission, your thoughts on transmission. A lot of transmission coming out of both of your states, the state of Utah. There's a tremendous amount of power that gets sold to places like California coming out of our states, wind power. We have some coal power, soon to be natural gas power that's being sold into the LA area. So transmission is a really big deal, and it's really hard. I would also like to pair that with just a permitting conversation, a NEPA conversation. Secretary Burgum very famously just recently said we're gonna really improve NEPA to the less than a month. I'm not sure that'll work, but I'd love to see it happen, and would love to see Congress actually do something here. But let's Governor Gordon hear from you on transmission and NEPA, and then Governor Little.
Yeah, well, it seems to me incredibly important that we figure out. NEPA is not a bad law. When it was first created, it did some remarkable things. Arguably, the Alaska pipeline would not have worked as well if we didn't have NEPA. Over time, though, it's been bastardized and changed so much that it now becomes so difficult to do anything. So, for example, you know, a wind farm in Wyoming took 12 years to get permitted on its transmission. You can't do anything in this country in less than 5 years at this point. And we talked a little bit about venture capital and that 10-year horizon. Half of it's now taken up with permitting. So we've got to do something to reform it and to make it work better. And I think that's what's exciting about giving this administration's initiative to try to give more of that responsibility and opportunity to the states. Now, there's obviously a liability that's associated with that I hope is the back piece of that, with the federal government kind of standing behind us. But if we're gonna take care of our security, we're gonna take care of our economy, and we're gonna be able to power this nation, these are reforms we've got to embrace. And I do think that towns and counties have a better sense of what's going on locally than the federal government. I think states have a better sense of how to regulate in their states than they do federally. And somehow we've got to get that equation right.
Thanks. Governor Little, your thoughts.
I don't know what the problem is with transmission. We got a line we're working on. Right now, it's only taken 18 years, and we're still not there yet. So we're better than your 12-year deal. And believe me, this administration understands that problem. The issue is durable. Making you can do some executive orders and get some things waived, but for for a person to say, I want to invest, $10 billion in a big west-wide transmission project, they're going to want to know that the rules 3.5 years from now are going to be the same as the rules there are today. So, and it's going to be some heavy lifting. I think the Western Governors is going to be a source of it. Our real good friend, Governor Dunleavy, talks time and time again about the big projects he wants to do in Alaska and the investment there. He's got the people that are investing have to tell their bankers that there's going to be some surety going forward. A good example in Idaho Falls, in Bonneville County, they own their own little utility. They couldn't get a new power line in their county from their hydropower facility out to another place because people were, and if you can't permit a transmission facility in a county where everybody in the county is a beneficiary of it, I just think it's a big problem without having to do some, and of course, if I'm Brad the rancher and they say they're going to put it right across me, I'm probably going to show up at the meeting and protest. But that's okay as long as I can't stall it forever. Everybody ought to have the right to protect their private property, to protect their interests. It's the timelines on it and the restarting the shot clock over and over. Those are the things we got to fix.
So, Spencer, just another aside that I think is a little bit different from the NEPA and permitting issue on new transmission. I think, you know, with the brain trust that these universities provide and the fact that we have great carbon in the ground, and you don't have to just burn carbon. Carbon turns out to be a pretty good, you know, way to transmit electricity. A little bit more efficient, lighter, stronger. If there's ways that we can research and build manufacturing to be able to kind of restring and repower some of the existing infrastructure, that's good for all of us. You know, it's 10 to 20 to 30% efficiency. That means more electrons going through that line.
Thank you. And you can see why this stuff really matters. It's so important, not just to be able to provide more energy, but to provide the jobs and these artificial limitations that we've intentionally put in place in our country, not intended to be so originally, but removing those limitations. I agree that everybody should have an opportunity to show up and protest. We should listen to those and make better decisions, but it can't be a never thing. In fact, as I talk to companies across Utah, what I hear is I would rather hear the words no than maybe someday, because maybe someday is hard to invest in. No, at least I can take my capital and do something else with it. And that's what we're facing right now. Even in countries that are much more environmentally friendly, they laugh at us that it takes years to get an approval to actually build something. So I think there's changes we can make there. We're going to sign an agreement together, which I'm very much looking forward to. And I want to look at the positive side of things we can do together. We've heard, we've talked a lot about geography. We've talked about shared resources. I want to talk, maybe the last question for you both, and then we'll bring out the table and chairs to sign. But the human capital piece of this has come up over and over again today. That I think we're struggling in lots of different industries right now. We're very fortunate in Utah. We've got some amazing universities, as do both of you. Our universities work closely together. We've got large companies that have moved in here who need engineers, and they're struggling to find the workforce. And it's not just a Utah thing. It's not just an Intermountain thing. It's happening all across the country. I'd love to just hear your thoughts on how we can work closely together to build the workforce of the future for nuclear. Brad?
Well, it was at this energy conference, the gentleman I was sitting next to represents Mitsubishi Heavy, and they do a lot of almost everything in the energy field. And he said, I would love to reshore to the United States, but I don't know where I'm going to get the welders. I don't know where I'm going to get the engineers. And of course, that's the issue with China. What I think for every 100 engineers China produces, we produce 5, I think is the number. We have got to, both the skilled and the VOTEC, we have got to ramp that up. And this is way above energy. This is the whole reshoring into America. But the energy industry does require a very specific set of skills. We've got a program in Idaho for career technical for all my high school seniors. And I think almost all the linemen that are going to the lineman college are recipients. And because you can't maintain lines and build lines if you don't have skilled linemen, and it pays good too.
And it's
I'm not getting up on one of those poles when it's 20 degrees, particularly in Wyoming.
I do have to say, I just want to give Idaho a shout out that their trade program in the high schools, the incentive that you've put out there is, I think, a model for all of us, and really appreciate your work there. Governor Gordon.
Well, and I was just going to say, you're no slouch either. Utah's done incredible work there. Well, we started a few years ago basically saying, why aren't we getting the workforce that we need? Why aren't they getting skilled the way they should be? So let's start from the bottom up. Let's make sure we have a partnership between our community colleges, which are a lot of whom are VOAG, and tie them to the university and make a pipeline that allows, whether it's a high school student or somebody that's just lost their job trying to re-educate themselves. I hate the term retrain. Re-educate themselves so that they can go on. The idea has been around providing the education and the opportunity for people to learn, and then work with the companies not to give them the students practice on the equipment that is being retired, but on the next generation of equipment, so that they're always anticipating what the workplace is going to be like. And that's really from high school all the way through people that are almost getting ready to think about retiring, because we want to keep them involved. And then I think, John, I look to John and the Idaho National Nuclear Laboratory, and the fact that we partnered both with Western Wyoming College and with the university to really build curricula around specifically nuclear training. And it feels like this is getting some momentum behind it. And so we're hopeful that this will pan out and be useful.
Excellent, thank you. I know we're out of time. I just want to conclude, and then again, we'll bring the table out here by thanking you. And I hope all of you can see the synergies that exist between these states. We send students to Wyoming for mining degrees and certificates. We send our workforce and students to INL in Idaho to work together. Now, of course, we would love to have a national lab here in Utah to do that work. Everybody wants those kind of things, but we're just stronger together and not caring who gets the credit. When TerraPower was looking for a location, we got really excited about Kemmerer. Kemmerer is right on the border of Utah and Wyoming, not far from the Idaho border. We knew that this would help some of our rural employees as well. They got an opportunity to work there in Kemmerer, and we do a lot more when we're working together than when we're fighting against each other. Life is not a zero-sum game. Trade is not a zero-sum game. Nuclear energy is not a zero-sum game. If Wyoming figures this out first, Utah and Idaho are going to benefit, and vice versa. So I just want to thank my colleagues here for your willingness to come to our state. We love to visit your states as well, and we do so often. But we love even more that our citizens are going to benefit from us working together and showing that this really is a win-win-win. So with that, please give a round of applause to these great governors.